Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. All right, good afternoon. We're here with Mesa County Compass, and it's a lovely Tuesday afternoon. We're early this week. We have a guest, Mr. Scott Bottoms, who is actually running for our governorship for the state of Colorado, and we're excited to have him with us. Welcome, Scott.
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Sure, welcome.
Would you do us the courtesy of having a little bit of your background for the folks and why you got into this?
So I've been in ministry since I was 20. I'm a pastor of a church now in Colorado Springs, in the northern side of Colorado Springs. And my wife and I also got married that year, so we've been married 35 years as of December. The getting in the race is, it's really kind of tricky how you perceive it, but really just felt like God was telling us to do this. I rejected it. I had some people come to me and ask me, should I consider running? And I just kept telling them no. And then finally, one of the representatives that was literally kind of harassing me in my mind about doing this, she said, well, will you at least pray about it? And we did, and now here we are. And then now I'm running for governor. It's the same thing, really a lot of fasting and praying, trying to see what am I supposed to be doing. I have plenty of reasons from being a representative and watching the corruption and just the absolute attack on families and children. I have plenty of reasons, but I really do believe that God propelled me into this.
So what is your background that makes you feel like that you are qualified for this job?
Well, pastoring a church for 35 years, a lot of people don't realize the broadness of what a pastor does. And, most people think the pastor works on Sunday and then, eats chicken during the week or something. I don't know. But really having to do that. I've also sat on the board of a few things. And some of the most pertinent, I believe, I sat on the board of a group that once girls are rescued out of human trafficking, that we house them and I guess you could say the term rehabilitated them, but a lot of counseling, a lot of stuff. And it usually takes about 2 years for a girl to really break out of the mindset that her pimp owns her, her trafficker owns her. And so I also sit on the board of a university down in Texas, my alma mater, and my wife and I both do that. And so there's a lot of things that go on with that. And then the last 3 years being in the state house has prepared me and propelled me into this, that we've got to have some people that will actually fight, that are not corrupt, that are not taking money, that are not lying. It seems like almost all politicians lie. And I get so frustrated with that. And so I want to do something to actually reclaim Colorado and reclaim a lot of the things about Colorado. And so that's what I'm doing.
Excellent. It's a wonderful state. I'm glad to hear that somebody is concerned besides we, the people.
Yeah, right.
And we're going to get into some of the policies that you'd like to see presented, but one of the things that were asked last night after we had listened to you at Stand for the Constitution, because of what you just said, is how can people know that they can trust you and that you're telling the truth? And I think that is where we are with a lot of politicians. They give you, this is what I want to do, this is my principles, I'm a principled person, and then they get in and it seems like they don't follow through, or they compromise so much that you're going, well, why are you always compromising? Why does the other side not compromise?
Right. Well, one of the things, I hear this as I'm running, there's 20-something people running for governor, so you get a lot of chatter. But I hear people that will say, well, I'm not a politician, which is why I'm running. Okay, I understand that, because I don't trust politicians. I really don't. But one of the things that I have learned in the last 3 years is that if you don't understand the inside of how this works, you're never going to be able to deal with the issues. There are people that are running for governor that literally have no clue even how to pass a bill. What does that mean? How do you develop some of this legislation? What does the budget actually look like in the state of Colorado? Now, on the trust side, one of the things that I bring to the table that is pretty unique to me, there are a few other governor candidates that are, I would say, are very honest people, very qualified people. Some of these people are my friends. But besides just 2 or 3 of us, one of the things that I bring to the table is I'm consistent in everything. You can check on my voting record. You can check on the past of what I've been doing. You can look at my speeches that I have given, and I give the same speeches in town halls that I do on the floor of the House, as, by the way, I do in my pulpit. I am consistent in all of those arenas of my life. I'm not a liar. I'm not corrupt. I'm very honest. I will not take money on the side. I've never done that. I've never, even as 35 years as a pastor, I've never let somebody that is a influential money person in our church manipulate me. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been tried.
Right.
But that's one of the things, and I'm just naming a few. You can check across the board. And when somebody says, well, I'm not a politician, we have no way of knowing what they'll actually do. They don't have a voting record. We don't see what's happening. Some of the people that are running for governor that have been either a representative or a senator, you can look at their voting record, and some of them are abysmal. Their voting records are worse than most Democrats. Well, that should be a red flag to say, wait a second, do we trust them? With me, no matter what area of my life you go into, I'm not corrupt. I'm not a liar. I don't take money under the table, those kind of things. And I've had people ask me, well, you're going to try to turn this state into like a church, a theocracy. Well, first, I don't even have the ability to do that within my own church. The reason I have job security is because I can't turn it into a theocracy. But here's part of the deal with that is you can look at 35 years of ministry, and I'm consistent. I've said this to people before. Wouldn't you like to at least one time try to have a governor that's not a liar, that's not a crook, that's not saying one thing and doing something else? We haven't had governors in 30 years that have done, and I don't know before that, but they all seem to change and lie and become something else. Wouldn't you like to at least try one time somebody that appears to be pretty honest?
And I have one more question, and I'm going to let Ruth, because I tend to hog the thing. Last night I heard something really interesting, and it's something I think is so true. You said that you have been working with the churches, trying to get them on board to see the need for the church to be a participant in their government.
Yes.
So what do you say, and how do you say that? Because I know so many churches that say, well, we're not political, we vote, and that's it. As long as we vote, we've done our duty.
Well, I would say the first argument to that is in Colorado, 45% of the church votes. So just because somebody is going to church, first doesn't mean they're voting. In fact, statistically, you would say that more than half of the church people that you come across are not voting. Okay. The second part of this is this is a big one for me. I really believe it is the responsibility of Christians to vote. I believe it's the responsibility of Christians, and this is biblically mandated. And if I've preached sermons about this, I could spend an hour easily on this. But there's a lot of scripture that shows us that we're supposed to be engaged in the community context of politics. I'll give you an example. At the Last Supper, when Jesus is talking to the disciples, he says that when you are brought before kings and rulers, when, not if. And it doesn't say that the Lord will rescue you. What it says is that the Holy Spirit will give you the words to say. So when you are brought into the political arena, the Holy Spirit will give you the words to say, which means you're not supposed to shy away from that political arena. And that's, so I have been going all over the state for the last 3 years, trying to get pastors to wake up, to get involved, to do something. And it was slow going. It was very slow going. There's a culture in ministry that even comes out of seminary, and I've been in 2 seminaries, that you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to mix politics in the pulpit, which is exactly the opposite of what the Bible says. But that has been the culture, and I kind of blame that on LBJ. But before the country became a country during the Revolution, up until the time of LBJ, the pastors have always been the tip of the spear in the political arena, always. But and the reason it's LBJ is because the church came strongly against LBJ and illuminated, shined light on his corruption, his racism, his cheating on his wife, all of these things, right? And so he lost the election. When that happened, later he becomes president. Obviously, he immediately starts attacking the church. Okay, and when he did that, he threatened their tax-exempt status. And from that day till now we live under a culture where pastors are not supposed to get involved. Well, it's because their threat of their tax-exempt status, which just 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, the Supreme Court ruled, no, you've always been able to do this. You're in the First Amendment. You're allowed to speak politically from the pulpit. And so it's starting to turn back the other direction. Now, to give credit where credit's due, many pastors across the state of Colorado have been waking up. They're coming and talking to me. I'm having luncheons, dinners, all kinds of things now where I'm reaching hundreds and hundreds of pastors, where before I was begging to get a pastor to have coffee with me. But the Amendment 79, which constitutionalized abortion, and then the Transgender Bill 1312 from this last session back in the spring, kind of opened the eyes, kind of broke the wall, and a lot of pastors saying we can't keep sitting on the sidelines. And so I would even say anybody listening to this, if you're a pastor, I'll come have coffee with you. I'll get a group together. I'll have lunch with you guys and just kind of show you a path forward of how you get involved, not just that you need to be.
That sounds great.
It is. It is. Along those lines, my pastor at my church is involved a lot with, excuse me, the trafficking situation. Excuse me. Anyway, being involved with the trafficking situation, and he has been trying to raise the alert that it is possible. It does happen here in Grand Junction, as well as everywhere else within the state. Kind of what is your take on all of that, and where do you stand with that?
So Colorado is the most human trafficking friendly state in the United States. Statistically, according to our laws, and we're also the most pedophile friendly state in the United States. We have a major trafficking issue, and just the natural crossroads of I-25 and I-70, and then going up to I-80 up in the edge of Wyoming. Those are thoroughfares to make trafficking very easy. Okay. I've been working on this for quite a while. I'll say some things to kind of let you know there's a bigger picture without actually going down some of these roads. But I'm working with a lot of different groups right now. I've been building this for a couple of years, a little bit more, about 3 years. And in fact, right before I got here today, I was on the phone again about this, working with groups across the United States and even some law enforcement groups outside the state of Colorado. You have to get outside the state because there's so much corruption and so much pedophilia and so much trafficking in the state that you don't know which law enforcement group you can trust and which you can't. I'm very pro law enforcement, and I really trust most of these guys. But I've been told by high-ranking law enforcement, sheriffs, CBI in the state of Colorado, you've got to be careful. And so so we've been working quite a bit outside the state and inside the state, and I've got groups that we're working with all over the country, and we're bringing 2 new groups on right now. And basically what this is going to be doing is we are going to root out the human trafficking in the state of Colorado. And I would say to anybody that's listening, specifically to your pastor, give me a call. We are collecting information. We're doing a lot of stuff across the whole state, and I'll just leave it for that right now. But you'll see over the next handful of months, and you'll see before the election, you'll see quite a bit of stuff that comes to light in the state of Colorado.
Excellent.
And it'll be very sobering for a lot of people in Colorado, that who's involved and how they're involved. and some of that kind of stuff. So,
Well, I'm excited to see that because I have been just heartsick over what's been happening and watching it over the years. I'm a lifelong native of Colorado, and it wasn't that way when I was younger.
well, and one of the things that you can pay attention to, and this is where it gets scary, most people outside the Capitol don't know really what goes on in the Capitol. But we have tried to pass laws, and I mentioned some of these last night in the event. But we've tried to pass laws to stop some of the human trafficking, to stop some of the pedophilia in the state of Colorado. And the Democrat leadership of our state, in the House, in the Senate, and all the way through the governor's office, stop this at every chance they get. And we've brought up laws that try to stop these things, and the Democrats vote unanimously, 100% against these things. They don't want to put pedophiles in jail. In fact, they don't even want to accept that that pedophilia is wrong. We've had representatives come up to the microphone and say that the children do not belong to the parents, they belong to the state. And then secondly, that they want to lower the sexual age of consent to 12 years old right now. And we already have medical consent is already down to 12 years old.
Yes.
Well, we even see where some lawmakers are trying to push that medical consent can be down to 7 years old for a child, and that sexual consent can be to 12. Guys, I don't care how you spin that or spell it, that is pedophilia.
Oh,
that is wrong, it is immoral, and these people need to be put in jail. But they're lawmakers. There's your problem. And but that's part of what I'm working on. That is some of the behind the scenes stuff that we're putting a lot of attention to. Right in the middle of a governor's race, but to me, you can't suspend trying to rescue children because you're running for governor. And so I'm doing both.
Well,
of
and they kind of both go hand in hand
They do.
anyway.
They do.
So,
You're
yes.
Especially
trying
in
to
Colorado.
reclaim Colorado.
Yes.
To make it a place that's safe for people to live and
Safe for children.
Welcoming.
Yes.
And that would be so nice. Instead of having people move out, have people move in. What
Yeah.
a change.
Yeah, so I'm on the phone a couple hours a day trying to raise funds for my governor campaign. So these are people that predominantly have given, well, they are somebody that has given to a Republican something over the last handful of years. That's why they're on my list, and that's why I'm calling them. Probably 20% or more of these people have already moved out of Colorado. I get that every single day. Well, thanks for the call, but I live in Florida. Thanks for the call, I live in Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas. Those are the main four. And it's very discouraging, although I can't blame them if they have young children. Our grooming is so strong and our pedophilia is so strong in this state. How do you blame a parent to want to take care of their child, to protect their child? But I really believe that once I'm governor, and I do believe I'm going to be governor, I don't think, I'm not just saying that because I'm supposed to, I really believe I'm going to be governor. We're going to change that and people are going to start coming back to Colorado.
That would be wonderful. Along with cleaning up everything and the lawmakers and all of that kind of thing, we're having to clean up our schools, our teachers, and that kind of thing too, because that's very prevalent in our schools right now.
Yeah, and the schools really are kind of the tip of the spear. I have this conversation all over the state. I've got a couple of guys that have been connecting me with school board candidates up until last week, and I met with 50 or 60 school board candidates, easy, probably more than that, and in all kinds of different settings, because I really do believe that school board is the tip of the spear for the entire state. You know, right now we're such a huge minority in the House that me as a representative, I don't have a lot of power, but I have a lot of voice. In this next election in 26, we really believe we're going to flip major amounts of seats. Okay, I go on record constantly saying this. We've done our homework on this, and we broke down every single county in the state, and we believe we're going to flip 14 seats in 26.
That would be fantastic. So that just goes to show you that it's the people that are actually the driving force, having to take a back seat to the lawmakers at this particular point.
Yes, it really is, and we call them lower levels. I don't like that terminology. You know, upper level, lower level. It's different. It's not lower or higher. A school board member has a lot of ability and a lot of voice, and then you'd be using that. And I talk to people all the time that say, well, I could never run for school board. Well, yeah, you can. If you're a concerned individual, well, my kids are out of school already. If you're a concerned individual in your community, you need to get involved. And school board is one of the better places to do that because it's directly affecting what's going on with our children. And children are the major target right now in the state of
Yes, they are.
Colorado. And so all of that goes hand in hand. And schools also are where we're seeing so much of the grooming, which is directly tied to the transgender ideology, which is directly tied to the trafficking of kids. And so all of this stuff, it's not different subjects. It's all the same
All
subject.
same.
So how do you, in our school board election, you heard this last night, there was $90,000 that came from outside. And really the way that they used it was a lot of signs, a lot of, they could afford to do a tailgate party at the college and
Negative
how do you-
advertising.
Negative advertising. That the candidates that just have regular Joes that are giving them $20, $25, $50 maybe, they don't have the same money. How do you get the word out so that people know what's going on and they're engaged?
And
What's
this
the
is
best
your
way?
issue as well,
Yeah.
running the governorship. Running the governorship.
Yeah, so one of the basic concepts is, so you can't stop the money from coming in. So
No.
how do you combat it?
Right.
There's a few basic things that I live by, some basic principles that is going to help me win the governor's seat against overwhelming odds. Okay, we know that Senator Bennett's probably going to have, and he will be the Democrat. Weiser will not be the Democrat that rises. Senator Bennett's going to have about 40 to 50 million. Okay, our target is 7 to 10 million, and we think very strongly we can do that. Some people say, well, the Republicans need to raise 20 or 30 million, then we can win. That's a laziness mentality. That says that we're just going to throw a bunch of money at TV ads and stuff and hope it works. That's not what I'm doing. And I do believe at the local level it can work the exact same way. It's just the breadth of it, right? You have a smaller demographic, but the way you can combat the money is you can combat it with time and with truth. You have to remember that truth really still is transcended. It's bigger than the moment. It's bigger than people. And truth is bigger than money, although money is powerful. There's no doubt about that. But you have to get out to the people. The reason we know our 7 to 10 million is going to beat 50 million is because of all over the state. We are everywhere across the state. I am going to almost every single community, and by the time of the election, I believe I will be in every single community.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
And that is, many, many hours, many, many days. But I love it. And the reason is because when you get in front of people, when you actually get in front of people, and I did meet with some board member candidates throughout the West Slope. I actually met with quite a few. And I kept telling them the same thing. You got to get to the doors. You got to get on the phones. You got to get to people so they see you face to face, that they talk to you face to face. Then when they see the ads on TV, they don't have as much impact. When they see the signs, they don't have as much impact. That's difficult to do, though. I'm definitely not saying that these board members, candidates, did not do that. I'm just saying that's the first level of how you deal with the big money. Is and that part of the thing is you're always asking for money at these places. You hate to do that. I hate to ask for money. I've been a pastor for 35 years. I don't ask for money, even in the churches. I teach tithing, and I teach giving, but except for a building that we've tried to build, I don't always hammer on that like some pastors do. But
Every sermon.
yeah, right. We just don't do that. So now I'm having to ask for money, and it's challenging. But at the end of the day, I know unless I get the money, we don't get there. And so I have to ask for the money. And same with the board candidates. If you don't ask for the money, you don't get there. And I would speak this out to people that have had opportunities to give to candidates and things like that, and not to pick on them, but the people that give the $20. Well, if you really want that school board candidate to be in there, you need to be a part of it, and that includes giving more than that $20. And then what happens is the other side gets elected, and then everybody gripes and complains because they're upset. Although, how much money did you give? How many phone calls did you make? Your children are going to that school. Your children are in the balance. And if you really need these candidates to win, which you do, because it's the future of our children we're talking about, then you cannot just give lip service. You actually have to get out there and do something. Something like you guys are doing right here. This is a result of saying we're not just going to be, well, we're going to get engaged. We're not just going to talk. We're going to get engaged, and then you're pushing these conversations out there, and to say, and I'm being a little critical, but I know this in the governor's side is I'm making phone calls, and I'll have people say, well, I'm not really going to get involved until after the primary.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm going to let everybody else make all the decisions, and then whoever comes out on the other side, well, I guess I'll throw a little bit of money at them, which means you're not having any input into who that person that comes out on the other side is going to be. That's inexcusable. The same way with the school board members. Don't just sit there and do nothing. Get involved. You can knock on 10, 15 doors and talk about your candidate and how they're going to save your children. And so, yeah, I definitely get passionate about this. You can combat the money out of Denver with presence. You can. But it takes commitment. It just takes commitment.
Sometimes it feels like a David Goliath thing, though.
Yeah, it does. There's no doubt about that. But I love when somebody uses that story as illustration, because who won?
Exactly.
David won.
David won.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your platform and what you would like to achieve as governor and your priorities.
So the 6 things on my platform, you can go to scottbottoms.com and you can look these up. These are laid out on the platform, but then we explain and develop them throughout in much more detail. But I'll just give you the basic categories. The first thing is we're going to reclaim parenthood and childhood. And this is the number one issue in the state of Colorado for Colorado voters, by the way. Some people will say, well, it's education or it's economy. That's not true. The number one issue from all the polling and all the data is the grooming of children. That parents across the state of Colorado, a Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. Unaffiliated, doesn't matter. Their number one issue is the grooming of children. And so we will reclaim parenthood and childhood, and there's a bunch of layers on the website that will explain some of that. The second one is that, and this is also the second issue in the state of Colorado, my 2 most important issues line up with the 2 most important issues of Colorado. That just happened to happen, but my 2 issues would still be the main 2, even if it didn't line up. But that's safety and security. We will reclaim safety and security for all Coloradans. And so the first subject is 80% of the state believes that grooming is the most important issue. The second one, 70% of the state believes, about 72% of the state believe that safety and security is the second most important issue. Well, that means Democrats, Republicans, and everybody, we're on the same page with a lot of these two basic things.
And you had said, and I know that it's true, that we are the second highest crime capital in the United States.
Yes.
Not just, Grand Junction, I think, is the second in the state.
Yeah.
Yes.
The state of Colorado is second in the nation for crime. Now, in many, many categories, we're first. In car thefts, we're first. In rape and assault, we're first. In breaking and entering, specifically of homes, we're first in the nation. These are not Colorado. This is not Colorado that we're representing here. This has become Colorado, and we need to reclaim it.
And
we
how do
need
you
to
think
pull it
that
back out of
happened?
there.
How do you think
Well,
that
it's a
happened?
culture. It's a culture that started with the governor and goes down through the House and the Senate. We pass laws every single week that we are in session that give rights to criminals and take rights away from the citizens. I'll give you one example. Last year, in the spring of 24, the bill is HB 24 1034. You can look that up. And the bill basically made it so that the threshold for criminals being released because of incompetency was so lowered that almost any criminal can be released right now on the grounds of they're incompetent to stand trial. Okay. When it came through the House the first time, I think 7 different Republicans voted against it. When it came through this, after it went to the Senate and came back, so the final version of the bill that Governor Polis signed, only 2 of us voted against it, me and another representative, Representative Graff. And I kept talking about this, that we knew looking down the road, we knew this was going to let a lot of criminals free. And I gave examples. There's going to be more rapes, there's going to be kidnaps, there's going to be murders, there's going to be all kinds of things that are going to be on the hands of the legislative body because they passed this law. And then this calendar year, we started seeing it happen where DAs were letting people out. And you can look, I think most people have seen some of this on the media. There's a guy named Galligan, I think is his name, or Gallagher or something, Galligan, I think. And he was released after he tried to kidnap a boy in Aurora, Colorado, from the playground. All the kids are running. This is all on video. All the kids are running away, and he's trying to kidnap this boy. But he's a meth addict, transgender, and he had been arrested 4 other times, including sexual assault of minors, and he was released all 4 times because he's incompetent to stand trial.
Lord.
Now, at what point do you say, okay, incompetent or not, we're not letting this guy back out there?
Exactly.
But our DAs keep doing this. And we had a guy right there in Monument, Colorado, right north of Colorado Springs, that ran over a woman in the drive-through because they got into an argument, and ran over and drug her 300 feet. Her daughter's running along beside and we've also done press conferences about this. This is online. You can find all of this stuff. Where the daughter is screaming and begging the man, please stop, you're killing my mom. And he kills her, turns himself in, admits that he did all the stuff, and then he is later released because he's incompetent and found to be incompetent, and just kind of thumbed his nose at the law. And then they erased all of the charges, just completely did that.
Well, and that's kind of the idea that anybody that commits a crime has mental issues.
Right.
Well, or else they just know that they're going to get away with it, and who cares? And
who cares?
I'll claim that.
And that's what amazes me is, normally we think in the state of Colorado, just your everyday person thinks that all of our crime is centralized in either California or New York or Chicago or somewhere like that. And then when you turn around and listen to what you said about Colorado, it's just unnerving.
Well, we know that we're first in car thefts in the entire nation, Colorado, Midwestern Colorado. Well, that's not predominantly happening in Denver. That's happening in rural communities or smaller communities. Grand Junction would have percentage-wise way higher car thefts than Denver or Fort Collins or Boulder or any of those kind of things. This is happening, the drug running is happening predominantly in rural communities. The human trafficking is predominantly in rural communities. Now, they may end up in the big cities. Right. That's just the conversation I had just an hour or 2 ago about where is the destination for these traffickers, whether they be sex trafficking or migrant trafficking, which usually turns into slavery, or sex trafficking. Where are they ending up? A lot of them are ending up in rural communities, specifically migrant areas, which that's Grand Junction. That's, you've got communities out here that are ranching and farming, and that's where some of this stuff is ending up. And so,
Wow,
but
that's
we've
really
had
scary.
We've had a culture for so long in Colorado where we hate the police, defund the police. The state representatives will get up and use this terminology, but they'll say nobody. This is the way they say it, which I disagree with this so vehemently. But they say nobody should be in cages. Nobody should be. That's their term for jail, cages. Well, I'm sorry, I strongly disagree with that. Some people need to be in cages. Some people need to be in jail, and they need to be there for long, long periods of time because they are a menace, a threat, and an evil force in society. And we must step up against this. But as long as we have that culture, we're going to have the crime. When I'm governor, I'm going to change the culture, which means now we can go after the criminals and go after the crime. But right now, the police are the bad guys. ICE is the bad guys. These guys are not the bad guys. They are the ones that are protecting us.
Right.
And we have to get back to that. We have to reclaim safety and security.
It'd be nice to build that fence around Colorado, basically.
Yeah.
Really.
It has to start with a mindset and a cultural ideology that says, breaking the law, this is not okay. You will suffer if you break the law in Colorado. That's not the existence right now. That's not who we are.
That's true.
Okay, so we've got the first 2, and you said that the statistics show that to be the number 1. Where do those statistics come from, that those are the 2 biggest issues for Coloradoans?
There's a lot of different things that we're getting this from. We're getting these from reports that we see, even from liberal newspapers and magazines, about statistics. And the Denver Post actually puts out some things about this. They tried to hide it a little bit because they are liberal, but the most liberal in the state. But we also are seeing this from, so we actually had to do some extra digging because we found out that a lot of the statistics that were being sent by labor or from the health department or whatever from Colorado to the federal government that fits into their stats at the federal government. A lot of people don't know this, but last year the federal government said that during the Biden administration, labor reports, crime reports, all of these things that were coming out of Colorado, the federal government had to dismiss them because they knew Colorado was lying.
Oh,
This is under the Biden administration. This is not Trump that said this. Okay? They said under the Biden administration that a lot of our details and stuff, and you can Google that. That's a public record. That they said they had to stop believing some of this, and so then some of the numbers were being changed to make them a little more accurate that had to do with Colorado. And that's when we found out all of a sudden that we're second in crime, that all these other things came out from even the federal government having to do with even the DEA or even ICE statistics and all this other stuff. Here's something else that we found out once they turned over all the information and stopped listening to Colorado. I cannot believe that our governor was sending information to the federal government from many different groups across Colorado and basically making the numbers up. Just flat out making them up. And the federal government, it got so bad, the federal government said, we're not taking your numbers anymore. Well, this is where we found out things like the #1 destination city for illegal immigrants once they came across the southern border was Denver. This was the main focus of this. This is also where we found out that everybody's known we had the Venezuelan cartel. But this is when we found out that the headquarters for the Venezuelan cartel in the United States is Aurora, Colorado. The DEA gave us those numbers. You can break down almost anything, but you have to look outside of Colorado for the information because we're being lied to by the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. We're being lied to by labor forces. We're being lied to by criminal statistics. We're being lied to by all these different categories, and you have to look outside of Colorado to actually know what's going on in Colorado.
And then you have to get that information out from an alternative news source so that people will even get that information.
So my third priority in the state of Colorado is we're going to reclaim the economy and energy. This has always been a big issue. Colorado is a coal, oil, and gas state. We always have been, and we always will be. Our governor and our legislative body is stifling that. Our legislators have come out very boldly many different times on the microphone. This is recorded. You can go find it, where they have said we will eventually do away with the oil industry in the state of Colorado. Well, that's not okay. And a lot of people don't realize also when it comes to property ownership and things like this. So the governor comes up every year in the state of the state to the Senate and the House, and he talks about how nobody needs to own property and nobody needs to own vehicles. That has been his statement 3 years in a row. You can check that, fact check that as much as you want. It's on video. And so part of the reason that he does this, and a lot of people don't realize, our governor hates farming and ranching. Now, some of this is because his husband is a vegan and he doesn't like cows and he doesn't like when people eat beef. That's why the governor had no beef day last year, right? And we ate more beef on that, or we consumed or we purchased more beef on that day than any other day in the year. It was wonderful to push back against that craziness. But it's because the governor's husband hates the idea of eating beef. Well, the governor is coming at it from a different point of view. He wants the state to own all the property across the state. So he wants to eliminate ranching and farming so that then the state can come in and buy up what appears to be this innocuous land across the state, rural, unsettled areas or whatever. But his reasoning is because a lot of people don't know that Colorado used to mine lithium, cobalt, and uranium. Well, those are the rare earth metals that we make batteries from. Okay, car batteries, not the 12 volts, but the ones that run the electric cars. Well, right now we're getting all of our electric vehicles directly due to slave labor, either in Africa or China. And I ran or I was part of a bill and part of an amendment on another bill 2 years ago and then 3 years ago that said that if you're going to, and this last spring we did the same thing, if you're going to bring electric cars into the state of Colorado, we will put a moratorium on any electric vehicle, bike, car, whatever, motorcycle that was produced, developed, assembled due to slave labor. And you would assume some of the caucuses, like the Jewish caucus or the Black caucus, would have got on board with that, right? That's their talking points. Slavery, reparations, all this stuff. But they got up and explained, and we've got this on video, where part of the Black caucus did this, and one of the major people in the Jewish caucus, he's a senator now, but when he was a representative, got up and explained, and this is what they said was, well, we know that some people have to make sacrifices so our children have a better lifestyle.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, mercy.
So other children around the United States
be
can be
enslaved.
slaves. I mean, around the world can be slaves, right? But we won't drill for stuff that's in our state. We won't mine for stuff that's in our state. It's because the state, our governor is a Marxist, and he's trying to control the state. Well, our economy, I was up in Julesburg, which is right on the border of Nebraska. And they asked me this question in a town hall, and they said, well, how can we revive the rural communities? It's simple. Start selling our beef straight to Colorado. Most of our beef comes from China right now. Well, that's our economy that we're talking about. Over 70% of all ground beef comes from Brazil, and then it's mixed in with American ground beef once it gets to the States. But we have ranches and farms all over the state. Why don't we buy from them? Why don't we supply? Why don't we let our main supply line come from the ranchers and farmers in Colorado? Well, the reason we don't do that, and also the reason we're the 6th most regulated state in the United States.
In everything.
Yes, is because our governor does not want Colorado to prosper within itself. He wants Denver to prosper in some kind of urban mentality, and I don't know where you're going to get the prosperity from if it's not coming from the rest of the state. But that's his mindset. But if we just started drilling for oil again, rural communities all over the state of Colorado would explode. If we started buying our own beef and our own produce across the state, not just in small areas, the rural economies would explode. And here's the other element I want to add to this, is I also believe very strongly in small nuclear reactors. Let's take Julesburg way up there. Put a small nuclear reactor in that area, and you're going to have so many people that now have jobs. They now are, and not just within the reactor, but all of the subsidiary stuff that involves electricity, sending of the electricity, managing all that stuff. But I also think, and this is a strong caveat, is I also believe that needs to be controlled at the local level. Not a state nuclear reactor that people are working at. I believe that we need to have our local municipalities contract with these people to come in and build that reactor, and they run and produce it. And so now your economy is growing strongly, specifically in that local area, rather than from the state level. And you'll see all across the state, we'll see the economy just explode. I really believe, and I don't think this is just pie in the sky, I really believe that Colorado has the ability, the potential, but right now we're going the opposite direction, trying to stifle. But I believe Colorado could be the most wealthy state in the United States. We could live large in Colorado, cut our budget like crazy, and everybody has extra money, cut our taxes like crazy, and we still have money flowing into every area, rural, urban, everything, and that we become a very wealthy place because of the driving forces of economy rather than taxing against the forces of the economy.
Or putting a fee on it.
Fees are taxes.
Yes.
Fees, fines, and local special districts. Those are end runs around taxpayer bill of rights. Taxpayer bill of rights is the only thing that has saved us in the state of Colorado over the last 25 years. And all these things are end runs. Tolls on roads, those are taxes. Those are end runs around taxpayer bill of rights. And half the time they're negotiated with by Republicans. And we get taxed on our own roads by Republicans. This stuff has got to stop.
Before Tabor gets gone completely.
Yes. Well, another thing that you had said was, that you
I don't think I
were
said
against.
shoot.
Yes, you did. I'll just tell you did. No, you were against Corp. So explain why you're against GORP, because we do have someone coming on that is pro-GORP, and what are your reasons for being against GORP?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons for being against GORP. The basic concept behind it I don't like. Some of the negotiation I don't like. There's a lot of things. One is they're going to be taking land from ranchers and farmers that they never talk to the ranchers and farmers about. We've even got Republicans that are pushing GORP that are working with some of the worst Democrats we have. Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper, they have been anti-Colorado from day one. When Hickenlooper was mayor of Denver and then governor, from day one they have been anti-Colorado and pro themselves. And now we've got Republicans that are combining with them and saying, let's take land from the citizens of Colorado, and some state land, some BLM land also, and saying, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of acres. This isn't 20 or 30 acres,
Right.
Hundreds of thousands. And they're taking them, and this is going to affect water rights. This is going to affect water control. That's the biggest issue that I have, is the water issue. That is always going to be an issue in Colorado. And when you have your own people, and I'm saying Coloradoans, that are undermining the people of Colorado so that they can gain control and access to water, that is some of the most egregious you can do, in my opinion. When you also have, I would say from my team, from the Republican Party that are doing this directly goes against who we are as a party. The Democrats are okay with that mindset. I am not okay with that mindset. And so when I see Republicans getting on board with this, I don't trust those Republicans anymore. What deal have you done under the table or behind the backs of the people of Colorado to literally steal, and I do believe that's what it is, steal their land, their water rights, and of course that's going to also include, although this really isn't in the conversation, that's going to include mineral rights.
Yes.
That's going to include all of this other stuff. And it's kind of a smokescreen right now, in my opinion, for a handful of people to become very wealthy long term. And all you have to do is say to a person, Democrat or Republican, hey, if you'll get elected and then you do this, you'll be a millionaire. And then 5 years later, all of a sudden they're a millionaire and nobody knows how or why it happened. Well, you can trace this back to these kind of moments when you're saying, what do you benefit? It doesn't seem, specifically if you're a Republican, it doesn't seem like you benefit from taking land from all these people. How do you benefit giving this to the state? Or I know it has to do with, well, we're going to try to provide services and stuff for the West Slope. I just don't agree with that. I think there's other ways to do that. And again, I just think this is stealing land, and so I'm just very much against it.
Okay. So you were I stopped you from getting your whole platform.
Okay,
with GORP.
so the fourth thing is that we are going to reclaim affordable and accessible health care too. I've been talking with doctors all over the state of Colorado, also psychiatrists and psychologists. They're actually starting to stand up. Now, we do have a ruling right now that's in process from the Supreme Court of the United States that talks about mental health issues. It's right now counselors, psychiatrists, therapists, they cannot disagree with transgender ideology in the state of Colorado. If they do, they lose their license. Well, that's being discussed at the Supreme Court level right now. Okay, I believe that will be ruled. We're already seeing hints of that. We're already seeing some minor rulings that have hinted into that. That this is going to be overruled, and counselors in Colorado will have unfettered ability to actually counsel people healthily. And I believe that the transgender ideology, first, it's rooted in Marxism, but it's very manipulative, and it's also mental health. It's a mental illness. And so years ago, as a pastor, when people would cut on their bodies, I would counsel them, this is not good. You need to stop this, and send them to a psychiatrist or psychologist or something. And I've counseled many people for many different hours. Well, now, when they cut, and it's more than just cutting along their arms and legs, now they're cutting body parts off, specifically minors that are cutting genitals off. And now we're financing it, and we're enabling it, and we're saying this is actually healthy, and this is the expected behavior. That is craziness. We have stepped into the arena of absolute lunacy, and we are hurting an entire generation. And so some of that is in that healthcare mentality is the mental health, which Colorado is cutting funding every year since I've been a representative. We've cut funding to deal with mental illness, and we put it into other arenas. Because why? The big reason is they want to hide this. If you put a bunch of money and access into mental health, then you're going to uncover, hey, this is not good. We see where Europe has come out with the CAS report. The report is one of the biggest ones that came out. That was a 20-year study that said transgenderism is very dangerous. Many of the European countries, specifically places like Amsterdam and places like that, they've outlawed transgender surgeries now. Because why? They did the studies. We bring the studies to America, and I've sat and listened in the House of Representatives where Democrats will come up and say, oh, that's just one report, it doesn't matter. It's a 20-year report on a subject that 20 years ago we weren't even really dealing with majorly in the United States. And so that's one arena. The other arena is just healthcare in a general sense and insurance. We've had 2 major insurance providers pull out of the state of Colorado. They will not be issuing any new insurance policies. That was just in the last 2 or 3 months.
Right.
We are seeing our healthcare system is collapsing. And we had a representative last year that presented Obamacare again for Colorado. We've already proven that it's broken, it's wrong, it cannot work, it is only destructive. We don't want healthcare like England and Canada.
No.
And I believe strongly in pushing as much as we can into 2 categories. One, push the authority and the driving force back into the hands of the patient, rather than insurance, doctors, hospitals, all that stuff. I, as the patient, should make my own decisions.
Right.
And then the other side is push it back into a capitalist mentality, where now capitalism is ruling the day, so that if I go to a doctor or provider or something, I can negotiate, I can talk with them. I'm on what's called a share program right now. I don't have traditional insurance. I stopped doing that years ago. I don't like it. I don't trust it. It is broken. And interestingly, when I go in to get some kind of medical procedure or something, even a major surgery, I negotiate with the doctors. I negotiate with the hospital. I negotiate with those. And it's usually about 1/10 to 15% of the total number that you're going to go in and pay if you have traditional insurance.
That's exactly right.
Because it'll just be paid.
Because
they've negotiated the contract
Yes.
and said, we know you're asking this is what we'll pay, and
And
off we go.
I have also found that the doctors that we interact with that work in this part of the system, most of them will just stay in traditional insurance, because basically because of Medicare and Medicaid, which are also very broken and corrupt. Okay, but these doctors usually turn out to be much better doctors, more involved with us in the care process, and also much more committed to the bigger picture. They know they're going to get their money much quicker and easier from us than an insurance company. Right. And because oftentimes we pay for it up front. So when you're negotiating, you say, well, I'm going to give you this amount of money before you even do the surgery. Doctors love that, and they'll bend over backwards to work within those systems. So that's the fourth one. The fifth one is we also are going to reclaim government transparency and
That'd be nice.
and fiscal responsibility. In the 3 years I've been a representative, and this goes back to when people say, well, I'm not a politician. Okay, but do you even know how the budget works? Do you know how the state budget works? If you haven't been in the system, you don't. It is so convoluted. And I also sit on appropriations, which is the last committee that bills come to when they need money. And my nickname, I've been given this by some of the newspapers in the Denver area, is Scott No Bottoms, because I vote no 98% of the time in appropriations, and really across the board, but mostly appropriations, because I've watched the shell game, I've watched the corruption, I've watched not thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars, not hundreds of millions of dollars, I've watched billions of dollars that go places it's not supposed to. It's a shell game. It is corrupt beyond what you can possibly imagine, and people are becoming millionaires on the backs of the taxpayers. We have one representative that this was, the Denver Post even did an article about her. That shows you how bad it is. She's a Democrat, and the Denver Post called her out. The Denver Post is liberal.
Yep.
Well, because the first year that she was a sitting representative, she had a nonprofit before she became a representative, over the entire tenure of the nonprofit, she had about $10,000 that was donated to her. Okay, the first year she was a representative, just from the state of Colorado, she had over $1 million given to her. Okay, this is just one example, and that's just one example for her. She's done worse, but this is the reality: is we need to have some transparency again in our government. We don't. Every year I've been a representative, the legislature has passed laws that take away the rights of the people to find out information from the state, to get stuff going. Something that is called CORA, Colorado Open Records Act. Anybody, both of you right now, if you thought I was doing something wrong, you could CORA me. In other words, you call the Secretary of State's office and say, I think Representative Bottoms is using money inappropriately over here, or maybe there was something that he said in an email. And I have to produce all that stuff. I've been CORA'd quite a few times. But here's the thing is we make it more and more difficult for the average person to CORA an elected official in the state of Colorado. We make it more difficult for investigations to be done on elected officials. Well, guess who is running that legislation? Elected officials. They don't want you investigating them. And day one, we're going to start changing that, pushing back those through executive order. We're also going to doge every single department in the state of Colorado, every state agency, because they are corrupt. I'll give you three big ones. CDOT. We need to doge CDOT. There's so much corruption in CDOT. Then also anything to do with education, the education administration, the state, the unions. We need to doge those groups. They are very, very corrupt. Colorado Department of Corrections. There are some very good people in the Department of Corrections that are being hindered and harassed by the corruption at some of the highest levels. And I could go down the line, but that's how we're going to, that's what we're going to do day one with fiscal responsibility. I also will cut the budget. I will present a budget that will cut at least $10 billion. I've been watching this since Polis became governor. The budget went from $29 billion. 7 years later, he's about to term limit out next year. 7 years later, our budget's $45 billion. So from 29 to 45 billion in 7 years. That is not okay. We need to cut the budget. I believe easy. The 10 billion is a starting number. We can cut that off the top easily. Now it's going to make both sides of the aisle upset, Republicans and Democrats, but it has to be done. This money belongs to the people of Colorado, not to the politicians, and they need to stop getting their hands in everything. There's a bunch more to that, but you can look on my website for some of that. And then the last thing is this interesting direction that is happening, whether we want it to or not, it is what's happening, and that's AI. AI is really moving across the nation and developing at very, very quick rates. I talked to a guy that works for Microsoft maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and he said within a year to a year and a half, he won't even have his job, and he's one of the guy that is actually writing code for AI.
Wow.
So he's writing code for AI, and he knows he's losing his job by doing it. Now, here's where I have always been amazed at the people of America, and the people of Colorado too, is anytime there has been technological leaps forward in our country's history, and there's been 3 or 4 majors and a lot of minors, but human innovation has always stepped in and won the day. Okay, we're going to lose all these jobs from these computer abilities and all this. Like I remember on assembly lines, when computers were going to take over assembly lines, we're going to lose all these jobs. Well, human innovation steps in, and we actually gain more jobs in that arena. We gain jobs in the IT arena, even though that was the conversation, is we're going to lose so many jobs because of computers and internet and all this other stuff. And it's turned out the opposite. And so even though AI will take millions of jobs away from Americans, there's no doubt about that. We cannot stop that. We can also step up and say, but here's where we're looking at that AI is not going to change the industry that much. And this is where we're putting jobs. One of the things is trade schools and trade schools. And then I believe, like, if you want to use a level mentality, like right above that, they're not white collar, they're not blue collar. I like to call them either new collar jobs where now you have people that are stepping into industries that are developing, and some of these will be in AI, where these industries are developing and people are stepping into them because they're getting certificates and training. The one big beautiful bill that everybody picks on, it actually provided for the Pell Grant now to be used not just for college students, but for trade school students. And so that's where a lot of this this human innovation is going to come in and explode. AI cannot fix a diesel engine. Okay, we need those diesel mechanics, and they make good money. That's a great industry, and we can continue to develop that.
And then just changing the culture to say that a blue-collar job or something that is in the trades is not a lower class
Right.
position, that is equally valuable, and just because you're using your hands.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset.
Yeah, I would even say, so we're seeing kids go to college now, and they're getting degrees in gender.
Or did you know there's a degree in climate change from CU
Oh
Boulder
yeah,
now?
yes, there is. There's climate change degrees all over the country, and layers of those gender degrees all over the country. These are wasted, useless degrees. They are a waste of the money. You're never going to be, partly because we're starting to actually come to grips with the fact that climate change has been a hoax that has been pulled on us, and that it is a religion. I believe the whole climate change mentality is a religion more than it is based in any facts or science. And in fact, I've just been reading this last week. I read 3 major articles from major groups around the United States that are saying we're done with this. We're done with the hoax. Well, now you got kids with degrees. They got $300,000 in debt, and they got a degree going nowhere. And the best they can hope for is work for some nonprofit that's bought into the ideology and make $40,000 a year. Well, the diesel mechanic, they graduate and they're making $100 and $150 an hour doing this. And there's a natural mindset for us to say, well, they're just as good. I would say it the other way around. They're needed. These others are not. So this is a legitimate arena of conversation. This is a legitimate arena of trade school education, and they don't come out with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. They are immediately productive in society. And this other demographic we're seeing from higher institutions, which I believe in higher education. I have a terminal degree, but at the same time, I'm watching that higher education slowly starting to collapse, because it is built upon indoctrination now rather than education. You'll still have some of the degrees like lawyers and doctors and some things like that are in that arena that I put diesel mechanics in. Same thing. It's a necessity. Okay, doesn't matter how you arrive there. It's a necessity. But a lot of our degrees across the country and a lot of the indoctrination, it's collapsing in on itself. And if higher education doesn't open its eyes within the next couple of years, they're going to lose everything. The whole, like Harvard not letting Chinese students in. Harvard has taken a major hit to the billions of dollars because of this. When people like that don't open their eyes and they stick with their DEI indoctrination ideology, they will ruin themselves long term, and that's what we're seeing.
Implode. Totally.
They will implode. Yes.
Do you have questions?
I don't. Actually, Scott has answered most everything that I had because of his platform. And his platform seemed to follow along with everything I had written down. So
Good.
Let me throw one thing out. I see it on your paper, but education, because this is actually a big one for me. And it kind of gets lost in the mix sometimes. So a couple of my little categories that I'm approaching, some of the I would say not little categories, but under the major categories, the subcategories. One of them is definitely education. I definitely believe in school choice, strongly believe in school choice. I believe in charter schools, private schools. And I'm watching enrollment in public schools in Colorado in the last 5 years has gone down 40%.
yes.
This is not, I've heard Democrats try to explain this stuff away. Well, people are moving, or there's different, no, they're not. What is happening is they're tired of what the public schools are doing. When you've got the grooming and the indoctrination in public schools and the DEI and the CRT and the SEL and everything else that is so strongly pushed in the public schools, well, then people are going to start leaving the public schools. We have the freedom to do that in a way now that we didn't even really like 30 years ago.
Exactly.
Well, with all of this other stuff, and I strongly believe in homeschooling too, but there's a verbalization that people say, or they say that, do you believe in the money following the child? Let me explain this very clearly, because I don't believe in the money following the child. I believe in the concept, but I believe the application will be destructive to us, and here's why. Our Constitution says that when the state, wherever the state gives money, the state controls.
Oh.
So if the money follows the child into a charter school, now charter schools are also public schools, but now the state controls that. But here's where it gets tricky. What happens when the money follows the child into a private school? Well, now the state has control over that private school. What if it's a private Christian school? The state now has control. And all the stuff with DEI and SECRT and SEO and all that stuff will be pushed. You'll have the grooming being mandated in the schools. And then what happens when you have homeschooling? Most of your homeschooling parents are strongly against the money following the child because now the state controls. My plan would be that we give a tax credit, tax refund to every parent that has a child of school age. Okay, and the average student, the average money for each student across the state of Colorado right now is $15,000 per student per year. We just blanket an average, and it doesn't matter which school district. I know this is where some school districts are like, well, we already have a higher tax base, we get more than that. Okay, but this will be a blanket across the state, and everybody gets the same amount of money per student. Now what happens is the money is not following the child. The money now goes directly to the parents as a tax credit, tax refund. They now have $15,000. They can put their student anywhere they want. The public schools don't automatically get that $15,000, but neither does a charter, private, or homeschooling. Each parent now says, this is where I'm going to put my child in a school. Now take the $15 off the table because that now belongs to the family. Okay, that's not
going into the general fund?
It's not going into the school. It's not going in anywhere. And you have to kind of think differently. You say, well, I have $15,000 now to educate my child. You can educate your child at any financial level you want to. You just have a tax credit refund that is $15,000 to you. You can do anything you want with that. Now, the public school, right here in Grand Junction, pick a school, that public school can say, well, we charge $15,000 per student. Okay, well, I'm going to put my child in that school for $15,000. Well, the school right down the road may say, well, we charge $14,000 per student. Charter school may say, we charge $10,000 per student. A private Christian school, maybe they charge $25,000. Okay, well, then the parents are going to have to come up with 25 here, 10, 14, 12, whatever. They decide which school to put their child in. Now, I have found over the years, parents don't make their education decisions for children. Money is not actually the primary thing. It's other things. Right. What is the culture of the school? What is the academics of the school? Because I've heard the conversation for years. Well, what if a parent chooses to put their child in a school just for sports? Well, okay, I would not make that decision with my child, and your child will suffer if sports is the only criteria. My criteria would have been education, but then also culture, right? Are they grooming children? Is this a solid moral culture? Even if it's not a Christian school, do they have discipline? Do they have things like that? And you can put your money where you want to in any setting across the state of Colorado. Not only is that school choice, but you are actually empowered by your own tax dollars to put your child where you desire to put them. And here's another thing that I've seen happening across the country. I haven't seen it happening in Colorado yet, but to me this is strong. There is groups of parents in different states around the United States. Let's say 20 families. They say, okay, we've got, or let's say smaller number. Let's say 15 families, and they've got average of 2 kids each. Let's say they're basically within the same age, and this would be so many different variables, but that they say, okay, we've got 2 child, so that's 25. Let's say 25 kids that are in kindergarten, first grade age groups. Okay, they can contract separately out there. They've got that $15,000 or however much they want to spend, and they can find a teacher that will teach kindergarten, first, second, third grade maybe, or maybe kindergarten, first, second grade. And your child starts at kindergarten, goes all the way through that. These 20 parents, or however many there are, they have contracted with this teacher. They have interviewed this teacher. What are your values? What is your culture? What is your morals? What is your education background? Can you do all of this? And they have one teacher that teaches all of their students, all the subjects, for 3 years. And Anywhere along the way, if that teacher starts going down a road that the parents are not comfortable with, well, this is a contract that teacher signed with those parents, which, by the way, that's how our education system existed for 200 years.
Right.
This is how it was originated. And then, you know, when you get to the next step, or maybe you got 2 children in this one and 1 child in this one, that's the next 3 levels or something. And you can bring that teacher, it's your contract. You can take that teacher with them as they go, however you feel the most comfortable with this. I guarantee you there are tenured doctoral professors at universities all across the country that will all of a sudden jump into this plan. Why? Because you can pay that teacher anything you want to. Instead of $60,000 a year, you can pay them $250,000 a year. And they're the teacher for your students going through. You're going to have some of the most qualified teachers that will get out of all the other systems and they'll jump into this concept. And then the parents have a very strong education platform for their children. They're not wondering what's going on in the classroom, and it didn't take COVID to see that. They know what's going on in their classroom and they can set up however they want. They can set up cameras that video the classroom, make sure the teacher's doing what they want. It's a private mentality of education for your children.
Well, and it's also equal because everybody has access to that in an equal manner. Yeah.
And you can pay the teacher $100,000 a year. You can pay them $200,000. You can pay them whatever you want, and you can use that money that you got from the refund or whatever. Or you don't have to. I mean, people say, "Well, then what about your children getting educated? What if you got some deadbeat parents that just spend all that money on drugs and alcohol?" Okay, well, we already have that, by the way, but now you have a competency test at the end of the year. And I believe for teacher and student, right? Why not hold the teacher accountable? Can you pass this test? And you'll have companies that will you'll have companies that will come up with tests all over the nation, definitely for Colorado, that will make sure that these teachers, and you'll probably start having little private groups work together and say, well, we have 10 teachers under our covering that we know they've been qualified in these areas. It'll be a complete privatized capitalism mentality pushed back into public education, and your students will get much better education than they're getting in the public schools right now.
I have not a doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, this has just been great, and we hope to see you again.
We could carry on for another couple of hours easily.
Yes. And you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the facts as we see them, the truth as we know it. You decide.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate
My
it.
privilege.
Appreciate that.
Anytime.